Hello, and welcome to Meet Your Next Best Hire, a podcast featuring and highlighting top industry real estate leaders looking to land their next venture in the job marketplace. I'm Kelsey Corey, your host. With over a decade of real estate executive search and recruiting experience, and the founder of Corey Executive Recruiting and Leaders on Deck, I've had the unique privilege of partnering with top real estate firms to recruit and place high-level leaders across the country. In this podcast, we will have the amazing opportunity to hear top real estate industry leaders sharing their career stories, leadership and management style, and ultimately what they're known for in their craft. I can't wait to dive in and connect you with the best talent in the marketplace. Let's dive in together. Hey everybody, I am so excited to spend time today with Chad Gilford, and I can't wait to dive in and hear his story. He has been in the real estate industry for quite some time, and he has been a proven leader throughout the years as a director of asset management, and he's based in the Midwest market, and he's honestly like one of the most interesting and funny guys I've had the privilege of getting to hear his story. So Chad, thank you so much for taking your time to be on the show, Meet Your Next Best Hire, with your host, Kelsey Corey. Thanks for spending time with us today. We appreciate you.
Hey, thanks for the warm welcome. I'm excited to be here and chat with you today.
Yes, and so we're going to dive in. I'm really curious. How did you fall into real estate, and what ultimately made you decide, like, I'm going to stick with it? Like, this is the space that I want to grow my career in.
Falling in was probably a fairly appropriate term. You know, I grew up in a small town and I studied human biology in college for a while, but just didn't really see a linear path to how that was going to get me into the medical field somehow. I was in a chemistry lab at 9 o'clock at night one night, just thinking, what the heck am I doing here? So had some fairly non-illustrious jobs after that, but eventually sent out a bunch of resumes and found somebody gullible enough to give me a job as a leasing consultant. Mm-hmm. I was always really infatuated by apartment communities where, you know, their residency probably rivaled the population of the town I grew up in. I know I was a terrible leasing consultant at that time, but I was lucky enough to work for a manager who would like teach me what he knew. He was a really great guy, and I worked for a really great company. So I just asked him. I was constantly knocking on his door, asking for other assignments. So I was able to talk them into making me an assistant manager, and then went on to be an assistant manager at a really large property. And again, worked for a great property manager who had been a regional vice president for Aimco. So at that point, saw that I could make a career of it if I wanted to. And I just really continued to keep turning over rocks and became a property manager after about a year of that, and then managed properties for about 7 or 8 years. So that was my introduction into then the corporate side of things, where I went on to work about 4 years in corporate property management, which was for a developer, a fully integrated developer, which is an education in all things real estate. And I did that for about 4 years before I was able to start learning the investment side. And make my way into asset management, do a lot of really cool things that was a lot more befitting for my skill set, given the sort of generalist nature and just the way I like to turn over rocks and connect pieces. So I did that for, another 4 years with them and worked on acquisitions, diligence, oversaw all of the retail, optimizing property performance and portfolio strategy, and just really enjoyed my time in. That's sort of how I got there and stayed there. So I consider myself really fortunate to have learned that real estate is both a physical place and a business. And I think a lot of people haven't either had that experience, or if they did grow up, if they learned the business side of it, they've potentially forgotten that these are physical places and places where people have experiences in their homes along the way. So I feel very fortunate to have learned both sides of that.
You know what? It's actually really cool, the fact that you grew up in a small town, especially in the Midwest. I grew up in Green Bay, Wisconsin, but I grew up everywhere, I say. But at the end of the day, it's funny because apartments, right, they're not as big and glamorous, especially like a while ago compared to where they are today. And so it's interesting to me that you ended up getting into that sector because in small towns, it's not really, let alone pushed out real estate. I mean, a lot of different focuses are in completely different industries where people tend to stay for 20 plus years. And so I think that's really incredible that you've been able to find that. And then you're like, okay, this is awesome. There's a huge pathway to different parts of the business as well. And that you've had that unique privilege to touch different pieces inside of it and find like, hey, I really like this side of the real estate sector. And that kind of naturally goes into our next question is, what are you known for in your craft? Can you kind of give us an overview of what is it that you exactly do and walk us through that?
Yeah, so I'd say that, I'm probably best well known for synthesizing information. That's the professional, probably euphemistic way of saying that I just do a good job of figuring things out and getting shit done. So, there's a lot of connecting the dots, reading between the lines and figuring out how things articulate with one another. And again, that's a lot of the privilege that I had in first sort of learning the on-site side of things and the property management operations, and then understanding how that relates to the investment side of real estate, for the underwritten strategy. So that's the first part. And I think that, the second thing is just extreme accountability. I view things in terms of solvency. By solving one problem, you don't create another. I believe in stewardship. And there's this principle that the Lions have. It's called Kahu. And it's the fact that you're an honored attendant or caretaker. And I think that there's honor in the job, that having the job is honorable, and that you acting as a fiduciary is someone else's money, being in that role, that you have to approach it with much more care than it's just a job. So I'm lucky that I found something that I really love and that I can draw upon my experience to explore it every day.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, there was so much good stuff in that. I'm like, okay, which one do I pull from? I love all of it. I'll have to circle back with you on that. But I think that does give me a good understanding of like, what is it? And I love the fact that you say honor, because at the end of the day, it is such an honor and a privilege to be able to work alongside and then building that trust. And really building rapport with the people that you're working alongside that are saying like, hey, this is really critical for the initiatives that we have and how we're going to move forward with these directions. And that kind of naturally goes into our next question is, what is a couple strengths, like one or two strengths that you would say like, yes, this is my stamp. This is something that you bring to the table.
Yeah, and that's a great question. I think those are difficult questions to answer sometimes. I think, so the first one is having high agency. That's having the forethought to be able to act with purpose and really, have integrity and resiliency to know really what you want to do. And that's sort of talked about, I've taken a non-traditional path to get to where I wanted to. And these things are always supported by having strong values. Integrity always comes first. And then the second thing is really just becoming the experience. And that sort of sounds like philosophical and sort of abstract, but I've read numerous things where people talk about that companies, organizations are on an educational journey to achieve things and learn things together, that there's no greater power than self-actualization. And so if you find a thing that you're commonly in love with and that you sort of protect it fiercely, that's, becoming the experience of that, if you're capable of doing that, then there's really no greater good that you can do to yourself is to live to your full potential through that.
I love the protect fiercely. I got to steal that one too. And that kind of goes into our final question. How would you describe your leadership management style and how has that impacted the bottom line?
First and foremost, I'd say that it's evolving. I think like a lot of people, leadership was kind of looked at as a byproduct of just being really proficient in your job. It wasn't something that you looked at as a separate discipline. And even like John C. Maxwell says, he didn't start thinking about leadership until he was in his 40s. So I like to think I'm kind of on par. I'm not going to compare myself with John Maxwell, but at least in terms of chronology, I'm in line there. But I'd say it's adaptive, first of all. Just like many other things, there's no one cookie cutter approach to any one person, what motivates them and how you align what you're doing with their values. But more importantly, I think it's holistic. because I very much believe in developing people as a whole. It's like any other thing. A person's a system. And I think if you can create better people, that as a byproduct of that, they'll be more engaged. They'll create better work product. And if you can invest in them as, what they're doing here, with their time on Earth, whether that's part of their workplace and, they're sort of integrating their work with their life and their life with their work, when we blur those lines with the investment that you have to make in your vocation. So I think the more that you can invest in developing people wholly, then their work is better off for it.
Yeah, I really like that. I mean, it's really investing people and not just looking, like you said, back at a cookie cutter. How do we just form them into what we would like them to become? It's like, okay, here's how they're entering into the business, or with us transitioning into the business. And then how do we really leverage that and help continue to grow with them through that process? Because like you said, I mean, we're still growing as leaders every day as well, and we're evolving. So all of those things are going to naturally, become something much greater, hopefully over time as we go through our career journeys. And, like I said, I mean, I would love to talk to you all day. I think you bring such a fresh perspective and I like your energy. What's the best way for people to get a hold of you, Chad?
I'm feeling pretty Dale, but here you are.
There.
I can't look, can I look over it like Kilroy? I don't want to look like Kilroy. So, so all the regular stuff. So, LinkedIn is an easy way to find me, through email. Happy to chat anytime, talk all things commercial real estate or otherwise, outside of work. I'm pretty active, build my life around health and wellness, or at least try to. Fanatical about baseball, travel as much as I can, and catch live music as much as I can. Anything that you want to talk about, I'm here for it.
Yes, so you heard it. Chad is open to making new friends, but he's also looking for his next best venture ahead. And Chad, thank you so much for spending time with us. And honestly, if you are looking to bring somebody on that it has the integrity piece, that's really going to be forward thinking in their approach and extremely strategic, and honestly, just a cool guy to work alongside, you want to reach out to him. He is such a breath of fresh air. So thank you so much, Chad, for spending time with us today. We're so happy that you were part of the show.
Thank you. It's been fantastic getting to know you, and love what you're doing with your platform.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thanks again for listening and sharing your time with us on the show, Meet Your Next Best Hire. I hope you enjoyed listening to and learning from another incredible leader our industry is so fortunate to have in the real estate space. If you're a high-level leader within the diverse real estate industry and looking to land your next best venture and would love to share your story from your own voice and perspective, then be sure to check out our firm at Corey Executive Recruiting and Leaders on Deck via CoreyExecutive.com. Our mission is to continue to be trailblazers within the recruitment space and bring meaningful leaders to the forefront to drive growth and empower people. If you enjoyed this session, please like, comment, and subscribe to support us and our partners at Multifamily Media Network. Stay tuned and come join us on our journey.